Ladies and gentlemen, we're back, second and final portion of today's interview, and we focus on Consul General Mike Schimmel here, Consul General of the United States Embassy in the Philippines. And Mike, let me ask you this, because so many, probably almost every Filipino wants to go to the U.S.
Well, we hope so. We'd like them to visit the United States, so we firmly believe that that's a great way to promote the friendship. And by the way, let me wish all of your viewers a Malagayang Pasko.
Yes.
Happy New Year. I haven't learned Happy New Year yet, but have a great holiday. I hope everybody has a great holiday.
And this is the longest Christmas celebration in the whole world.
So they say Christmas starts in Burr.
Yes.
September,
September.
October, November, December. Yeah. No, my wife and I have been very impressed with the Christmas
You got to go
celebration.
visit Pampanga because that's where the paroles or the lanterns, the best lanterns.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I was there last Easter.
Lantern capital of the Philippines
I'll
is
have to check
in
that
our
out.
province,
Right,
San Fernando,
right.
city of
Very
San
good.
Fernando.
Well, the camera doesn't feature too much of Christmas festivity here, but I will show that my necktie welcomes everybody to the season. And around the office, you'll note as well that we are getting into the festivities. We had our grounds lighting ceremony with Mayor Lim on Wednesday afternoon. He came over and flipped the switch so that our lights were on. And we hope that the embassy contributes to the wonderful Christmas decor that adorns the city. It's a beautiful time of year here.
During this period, you see an increase in the number of visa applications?
Well, because people want to travel for the holidays, we do in fact see a surge of applications at this time of year. This time of year and the start of the summer vacation, that's when the most applicants come in. But the numbers will subside as the holiday approaches because between Christmas and New Year's, of course, the travelers are already gone.
Yes.
And a lot of our people take vacations at that time, so numbers will go down slightly. As long as we have an appointment system, though, you don't see this incredible crush of humanity that you used to see because people have to have a ticket to get in the building and they know exactly when they're going to be seen. We think it works very well.
And everybody knows that already, right?
Oh yeah, it's been several years. There have been tweaks to the system to make it even friendlier.
Yes.
This past year we effected a new system wherein your application fee includes the courier service for return of your passport. You don't have to come back to pick up the passport with the visa in it. It's delivered to your door at no extra charge. That was effected 1 year ago this month. We think it works pretty well right now. And the call center, for example, is now no additional cost. It used to be you paid by the minute when you talk to the call center to line up your appointment. If you do not wish to process your application online, you can call the call center as many times as you want and line up your appointment. And let me point out, when you're given an appointed day and time, if that doesn't suit you, you're welcome to call again and again and again.
Have it readjusted or
to see if there's a change in the schedule, because sometimes some people drop out and an opening emerges. Sometimes we realize, in fact, we're going to have 2 extra officers in a given week, so we're able to open up another several hundred appointments. So it's always interesting if you want to change your date and time, and we urge people not to do that unless they need to, because the system depends on a certain order. But if you really need to, you call and you ask, is there any opening earlier than my assigned date of December 20th, for example? And if there is, then the operators can adjust the schedule.
But you're looking for more ways to further improve the system.
Well, we are, and in fact, 6 months ago, we inaugurated what we call the Visa Reissuance Program. I mentioned to you before, if you had a visa in the past, and that visa was valid for 5 years or longer, and it expired less than 12 months ago, you no longer need even to be interviewed. You simply have to turn up and give us a digital impression of your fingerprints, which is rather swift. We still have to collect that because it's required. And then you go home, and the visa is automatically reissued unless there's some new finding in the system of name checks, etc., that would compel us to bring you in for an interview. But 99% of the people who come in for the Visa Reissuance Program do nothing more than come in the door, slap their prints down on the scanner, and go home. So we think that that's very helpful to people. We hope to find more ways. We hope in the future, for example, that you won't even have to do that. Because once we have all 10 fingerprints on record, there's no reason why we'd have to see you again.
Right.
We would simply reissue because your fingerprints, unlike your features, do not change. So we shouldn't have to see you even again. But we're not able to authorize that yet. Because we don't have the blessing yet of the State Department to inaugurate that program. And furthermore, we only started collecting 10 prints from all our travelers in the year 2008, I believe. So we're not to the point where we have people's 10 prints on record. But once we are, we hope that that would be the last time you'd have to come in. You'd get a visa, you'd get it renewed 10 years later, you'd get it renewed 10 years after that. and you wouldn't have to deal with this facility. As attractive as it is, I'm sure there are places you'd rather be.
And it's going to be good.
Yeah, we think
for everybody.
We think so. Right.
And less hassle.
Yeah. Again, we very much want to see people travel. So if there are ways to make the system easier,
as you said, it's mutually good.
Absolutely. And again, you and I were talking earlier about the strong nexus between our countries. With 4 million Filipinos there, 350,000 here, and Philippine culture worldwide in generating great impressions in every direction. And that too leads people to want to consider coming here, and we hope Filipinos to go there. The friendship is very strong.
Your last posting, you were known to be, you work so hard for transparency.
Well, again, the process is most effective when it's best understood. We want people to know exactly what's involved in getting a visa so that they don't fall victim to the fraudsters who are out there trying to exploit their vulnerabilities. As you described it earlier, people come to the building very intimidated.
Right.
If they meet some person on the street who says, hey, I can help you with this, then they're possibly going to fall victim to that person's deceptive measures. There is no need for that kind of guidance and counseling. And how do we combat that? We try to get the information out there through interviews like this.
There's a certain travel agency you will promise them, okay, for a certain amount, we can assure you that you're going to pass it.
If you're aware of such a travel agency and you want to share the information with us, we'd be happy to deal with it. We have a fraud investigations department.
Money back, they tell you, but
nobody can guarantee the issuance of a visa. I can't guarantee the issuance of a visa. It depends on the interview, as I mentioned to you before. As I said, 75% of the applicants will get their visas. But there are people who do not qualify because we both know there are folks who want to go to the States to integrate into the underground economy and to immigrate illegally. So we have to prevent that by law.
But it's nice to hear from you that you're doing some modifications also to make it, you make your people study this and study that.
Well, first we want the process to be expedient. We want it to be as brief as it needs to be so that people can go on about their business. And we want people to be comfortable here. Truthfully, Sonny, we consider the visa interview to be one more diplomatic encounter. We are representatives of the United States government encountering Philippine nationals who are our hosts in this country. We want them to come away with a favorable impression of the United States government, just as we do when we attend a reception or a signing ceremony or any political event. There's no difference, and this is what I tell the officers at the interview windows. You are engaged with a very important person on the other side of that window, a Philippine citizen. Treat him or her accordingly. You are a guest in his or her country, and you are a diplomat representing our country. Please be very sensitive to the requirements of diplomacy. And I think our officers, they do a fantastic job responding to that counsel, and they are very aware of it. Again, our officers are consular officers, but they are diplomats who have in their trajectory eventual service at senior levels, possibly to include ambassador. And every encounter that sharpens their skills is important to them. And I want them to know
diplomacy,
that. Yeah, it's one-on-one diplomacy. That's a good way of putting it.
Especially
I'm going to use that phrase.
Especially for Filipinos, we've always treated Americans in a very special way.
Absolutely. That's why we feel so comfortable here, so welcome here. And again, the Philippines projects itself so attractively. Worldwide, for example, you have the national fist. Manny Pacquiao is but one. You got Eric Spoelstra coaching the Miami Heat.
Yes,
Tim Lincecum pitching for San Francisco, won the World Series a year ago. Another Phil M. And even in American football.
Tebow, I heard is...
Tebow too, yeah. He's got Philippine blood. And even in American football.
Right.
You got him. And then you've got last year's Super Bowl.
Right.
Who was in the halftime? Apple Diap and the Black Eyed Peas.
Yes.
And Apple Diap, of course, is Filipino American.
From my place.
He was fantastic. He was here the other day.
Yes.
Saying hello to the ambassador. He runs a foundation, and the ambassador contributes to that and supports it. And it's a wonderful thing to see him giving back to the Philippine people. So all of these things, of course, strengthen even further the tight bond between our nations. And you have Charisse appearing every week, or not every week, but more or less periodically on Glee as America's sweetheart, Sunshine Corazon. And Bruno Mars loves us just the way he thinks we're amazing, just the way we are. So it's really a fantastic situation right now. It's a great time to be in the Philippines.
Yes.
And all of us feel privileged.
And they're making inroads.
Very much so.
In
Very
the
much
art,
so.
in the entertainment industry, in sports, and
We're
everything.
overwhelmed with the talent that the Philippines manifests across the globe. Lea Salonga, lots of other performers.
Yes.
Everybody's fantastic.
There's along this Kapampangan from my province also.
There you go. You've got reason to be
It's,
proud in
it's,
so many
uh,
directions.
mhm.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And there's so many more.
Yes,
So many more
yes, yes.
who will be, doing good.
We're reminded of it constantly, especially this time of year, because so many parties feature singing. And when the Filipinos sing, we are, again, overwhelmed with the level of talent that exists in this country.
So these things, there's so many ways for a Filipino like me to go to the United States. Like you recognize that wedding invitations, birthday, something big.
We
in the
call those
community.
family events, baptisms, birthdays, graduations. Sometimes a person will come to the window very nervous because their connections to this country, their financial, their academic ties may not be particularly strong, but there's an event in the United States that would really, really benefit from their presence. A typical one is the baptism of a child or the birth of a child. We ask the officers, again, to be very considerate of the reality of that lifetime event, and if possible, extend the visa. Sometimes in those instances we will give a limited visa. I mentioned to you earlier we like to give 10-year multiple visas, but there are circumstances where a single trip makes sense.
Yes.
And we can issue because of humanitarian concerns. A very tragic one, of course, would be a sudden death in the family, and the traveler wishes to attend the funeral. Naturally, we have compassion and we want very much to issue the visa, even if circumstances are not as compelling as they might be for the return to this country. We hope that we can issue at least a limited visa annotated to reflect the tragic circumstances of the traveler.
That's really nice to hear, and especially now that we see your president giving, and some former presidents within their staff. There's Filipinos there, or Filipino Americans.
The White House chef?
Yes,
Filipino
yes,
American.
yes.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes, yes. Well,
The doctor.
Filipinos are everywhere.
Mhm.
They as we mentioned earlier, the Philippine population abroad is significant.
Yes.
And it's interesting to see their achievements and their accomplishments.
Mhm.
And the number of times when you encounter a Filipino in a significant position in another country is so frequent that it's almost not surprising. I couldn't help but be pleased at the royal wedding last
Yes.
spring when we realized that the nanny who had raised
Yes.
Prince Lily, I believe her name was a Filipina.
Yes.
That was fascinating, and he invited her to the wedding, and it was the first hug that he
Right.
extended to a visitor. And again, I thought, of
we're
course,
proud.
who better than a Filipina to raise royalty? Really, it was a fantastic impression.
But you are aware also that almost every Filipino they have a relative in the United States.
Yes, yes. Again, that strengthens the bond. That strengthens the tie. I've yet to meet someone who does not have a relative,
Yes.
and very often it's a first-line relative, like a brother,
First
a
line,
sister, a
mhm.
son, a daughter, a parent.
We were surprised in my class. We graduated in high school. We were about 60, and we were wondering why only 30 are coming consistently during our regular meetings. And then only to find out that more than half are already in the United States.
And it's interesting that the Philippine community seems to congregate in
Yes.
one area or another. Of course, the West Coast seems to be the most popular area.
Yes.
It's just a fascinating situation.
But for a lot of professionals, the East Coast is also a very attractive place to go to.
Yeah.
For nurses, doctors.
Right,
and-
right.
Mhm.
Well, everybody benefits
Yes.
when the legal immigration process is followed.
Mhm.
Everybody benefits. The United States depends on immigrants, and again, I can't think of a stronger category of immigrant than the Philippine category, because Filipinos are hardworking, they're incredibly optimistic, they're ambitious in the right ways, and they contribute dynamically.
That's why in this interview, we also would like to tell them that when you issue the temporary visa or tourist visa, they have to come back.
Absolutely.
Because,
I hope I made that clear. There is another category of visa, of course, which we're all familiar with, and that's the immigrant visa. That's usually family-based.
family base.
Exactly. For example, the most typical instance would be a Philippine national marrying an American national and electing between the two of them to reside in the United States permanently. That's an immigrant visa, very simple to process. Off the couple goes to a new life in a new land.
Or a parent.
An American citizen who wants
Yes.
his mother or father to move to the States can have them immigrate as well. The different categories move forward by a quota system. Unlike the non-immigrant visas, there are quotas for immigrant visas.
But this takes time,
in different
right?
categories. Some categories it takes many years.
Yeah,
A
like-
spouse is immediate. Minor children are immediate.
Spouses immediately.
Spouses
Minor
immediate,
children.
yes.
How
Minor
about parents?
children. Parents are a little more slowly. moving
Slowly,
forward,
mhm.
right? But not terribly slowly. They will get there in a little while.
But then the other
Brothers and
siblings.
sisters are the slowest ones. Brothers
Yes.
and sisters are 25 years.
Yes, because I have friends. They have already their own kids when when
Well, their kids go with them if they're under 21.
They go with them.
If
They're
under
minor,
21,
right?
If they're minors, yeah.
Mhm.
But the category of sibling is heavily oversubscribed.
But sometimes siblings, they're advised not to get married yet.
No, that doesn't matter. A sibling can be
It
married.
doesn't matter.
It's the son and daughter
Son and daughter.
that have to be concerned. The
Mhm.
adult son, the adult daughter. There are separate categories for a single adult son and a married adult son.
You
Why
go
is
over-
that? Because the purpose of our immigration policy basically is family reunification. And the family is mom, dad, kids. When the kid marries, as the Bible says,
Mhm.
he steps away from mom and dad. His new family is with his spouse. So the immigration category of married son and daughter has a less urgent need in the family reunification concept because the family is the new unit.
Mhm.
Whereas the single person, of course, reasonably could be considered still attached to mom and dad to such a degree that their reunification is more important.
That's why in the United States, you see Filipino families living in the same house, huh?
Well,
For an
again,
ordinary American family, that's the way.
we're getting into demographics that exceed
Yes.
my study,
Mhm.
but it is typical for immigrant families, families from this area, for example, from Asia in general, to stay together in ways
Yes.
that American families generally do not. Although in today's economy in the United States, you do see more and more adult children moving back into the nest
Mhm.
because the economic situation doesn't favor them.
How do we compare compared to the rest of the world in terms of the number of applications for non-immigrant and immigrant visa?
Immigrant visas were always, the Philippines is always the second or the third highest number. It varies from year to year, but the top three immigrating nations to the United States, Mexico is number one, no
Mhm.
surprise. Behind Mexico comes either the Philippines or China,
Yes.
and once in a while the Dominican Republic nudges its way up. Those are the top four.
So
Usually we're the second or the third largest.
Consistently.
Consistently,
Mhm.
right. Last year we processed almost 60,000 immigrant visas. Unlike non-immigrant visas, most of the applicants in immigrant visas eventually get their visas. There may be one time or another where they have to leave the building and go and get a new document or get a new medical certificate because the process is more complicated. But eventually, most people do qualify for their immigrant visas if they've been petitioned for in the appropriate way.
Okay, so we have a few minutes left,
Sure.
Mike. And I want you to please tell our viewers on like a gist of what we have been discussing, how to make it easier for them, and what they have to avoid and the like. So
Well,
they
the
don't
first,
fall.
sure. Well, the first thing they have to do is go to our website because that's where all the information
The
exists.
website.
Yes, and again, the visa process, non-immigrant visa process, is entirely electronic. Nobody has a piece of paper anymore.
Mhm.
They do everything online. So follow the instructions online, and along the way, there are frequently asked questions. There are suggestions on how to make the interview more complete, what to bring with you to the interview in the event that the officer needs to ask a few more questions, etc. That's all the information you're going to need. If you want more, there are lots of blogs out there that are available free. There's our Facebook page and our Be Satisfied Voyager. The embassy itself manages a blog. It's called Be Satisfied Voyager, and you can find it from our website. That's all the information you should need. The people outside this building offering you information are not working for us, and I would encourage you to disdain them and go to the sites that we think are appropriate. The most important factor in the interview is the truth.
The truth,
The
honesty.
truth. Absolutely, absolutely. And your intention must be to visit the United States temporarily. If in fact you intend to immigrate, do not solicit a non-immigrant visa. You may be found guilty of fraud, and at that point, your chances of ever traveling to the States in any category will be closed. So by no means should you consider the non-immigrant visa category a means of reaching the United States for some other purpose. There are a wide range of visa categories. Make sure you're applying for the right one. And not all of them are open to every traveler.
Mhm.
But the person who wants to make a visit to the States should come to the interview prepared with the truth and with a description of the reasons why he or she would come back to this country. It may also be helpful that the person adds other members of his or her family have already traveled. Again, as I mentioned before, that makes it more reasonable for us to conclude that travel is not beyond the means of this family. So all of these things come together, and we hope lead to a pleasant experience in our building. And one thing we do stress to the officers, whatever the outcome of the interview, we want the applicant to walk away with his or her dignity intact and a favorable impression of the experience at the U.S. Embassy, regardless of the outcome of the interview.
They have to come relaxed, huh?
We hope so. Yeah, come relaxed. The more confident you feel at the interview window, the more the truth will out. As you know, even when you're telling the truth, if you're telling it in a nervous voice, it sometimes suggests that in fact something else is real. So try your heart. I mean, we don't mind people rehearsing at home. They can go through the questions and answers. They're fairly straightforward, so that when they give the answer to the question asked by the officer, they sound as truthful as they should.
That's very good. That's very good advice. And you know, I want to speak in my language and tell them about it. Very, very clear po yung sinabi ng ating pong Consul General, no? Mas maganda raw po, nagsasalita tayo ng totoo. Yung honest tayo, huwag tayong gawa-gawa ng kwento. Kasi nafe-feel po na nag-i-interview yan. Gusto nila, kahit daw pag-aralan ho natin, kahit mag-rehearse tayo, ayos lang po sa kanila yan, ha? Ang importante ho ay totoo po ang sinasabi natin pag nagpa-interview tayo. That's the most important part of the interview, right?
That's the most important part. The documents mean nothing contrasted with the interview. The interview is the key.
It's nice to tell them what you just said. The 3 out of 4 applicants are,
yeah, they're approved.
They're approved, huh?
Right, 3 out of 4.
Okay, so I'd like to thank you. This is very fruitful.
Well, thank you.
And
maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat din, ha? Maraming salamat. Sana this will not be the last time. We didn't tackle too much the immigrant part.
I'd be happy to speak to you anytime.
Yes, I know you'll find time, but alam niyo ho, mga kaibigan, especially for Central Luzon, there are so many people in Central Luzon, like for Angeles and Subic, they have so many relatives in the United States.
Certainly. Well, again, we have a very pronounced history in that region.
Yes.
We have a huge American community in that area.
You're so used to Americans there. Huh?
Well,
You grew up with Americans.
and many who served in Subic and Clark have
Right.
returned as retirees and made their home, made their life in the Philippines. We visit those people. I mentioned to you, we come
Right.
up to.
You have a big expat community there.
Well, we
huh?
take the embassy on the road. We go up there to bring the passport services to the Americans
Yes.
who live there several times a year. We hope to be there in early January.
Okay, so thank you again.
Thank you very much.
As I said, very fruitful. Maraming salamat. Maraming salamat po.
Malagayan
natin. Okay. Thank you po. You have a nice day now. Ito po ang inyong lingkod. Sunny Lopez ang inyong programa, Aksyon Central Luzon Special Edition.